it comes down to a lack of leadership and direction from the top and vision. Ultimately, over a period of time, there's become an embedded rot. Their walls are closing in on them, and they do need to do something big through partnership or through an investor or through a sale in the next, I think, 6 to 12 months. This cannot go on.
And this is not a nice topic to talk about because we're both Manchester United fans. But through all you've been through in the era you grew up in and all of those famous influences you had that instilled those values in you, and even the early initiations you had in that dressing room from the senior players, and I read about all of that stuff as well. When you look at what's going on at the club today, even though you're not in the dressing room, you must have a pretty strong hypothesis as to why Manchester United in 2022 are failing, based on what you experienced.
Yeah, I think it comes down to a lack of leadership and direction from the top and vision, and a deterioration of the sort of beliefs over a long period of time. I said last night, actually, that a school that's underperforming over a long period of time and getting poor results gets put in special measures by Ofsted and by government. And they're not blaming the kids. It means that the governors, it means that the head teachers, the people at the top of the organisation at the school have not basically set the standards for those children, and they've let the school basically rot and the results become poor. I think that's what's happened at United. It was a high-performing school. The head teacher has left. The board of the governors left, David Gill. And what's happened since is that they've been replaced with people who haven't got it. And poor standards have just meant that ultimately over a period of time there's become an embedded rot. And that's what's happened. And all of the kids, the players, look now like they haven't got a clue anymore and they're getting poor results. I don't believe all those Manchester United players that are on that pitch are poor players. When they came to the club, some of those players, I was really excited by their arrivals. And I've seen players that weren't as good as them go to other clubs and excel. So the environment, the culture, the enthusiasm that you need to go into work every single day, I don't believe has been created by the hierarchy at the club. And then there's been a sort of a lack of investment into the facilities, into the stadium, into the training ground. So now Tottenham, Liverpool football. I used to laugh when I used to go to Anfield, when I used to compare it to Old Trafford. I used to think they can never catch up. They're too far behind. They're just building that second stand now behind that left-hand goal where the away fans sit. We saw it last night, towering up. The main stand now is towering up, and it holds 20,000. Anfield will be a more modern ground than Manchester United and Old Trafford in 12 months. That is unforgivable. To think where not only they've overtaken us on the pitch, but actually they've overtaken us off the pitch. Manchester City are light years ahead on and off the pitch. Tottenham have invested 1.3 billion in the stadium. You've been to a Tottenham stadium?
Oh yeah,
it's out of this world. It's one of
the best in the world.
It's a museum. It's the best in the world. I can't believe what I'm walking through when I see it. And yet, if you go to their training ground, which I've been to, it's an amazing, brilliant facility that is far better than Carrington, where we moved to in 2001. We moved to Carrington, 2000 we moved to Carrington. We left the Cliff training ground in Salford. So it's 22 years ago. It's had a bit of investment, but in 20 years, Manchester United have not invested in the stadium. They've not invested in the training ground that much. And then they've lost the two main people. And before you know it, you've got a club that's really struggling. And I've said that in the last couple of years, the only thing that I really do think can change it now is the ownership. And I say that on here more calmly than I say on Sky Sports, but it's not an emotive subject anymore. It's a very serious issue. There is an embedded rot at the club.
You know that they're walking past Wendy's balls now, don't you? Do you know what I mean?
No.
Is in like signing Wendy's balls.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Personified for me.
Yeah.
Caring about values in every single touch point, even the small stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking then, I can almost imagine now those small expressions of our values, as you said, they come from the top down, are probably now being missed. And it's funny because as fans, we look at the thing, we go, oh, he's not running fast enough, or we'll blame this player, or Fred, or there's this player, whatever. But when you've worked, for me, when I've worked in an organization, I realize that the values, the culture, everything starts from the top. And if you bring in great, and as we've seen at Manchester United, you can bring in the best stars into a bad culture, they'll become bad performers.
Yeah.
And I always said in a business context as well, if the culture's strong enough, new people become the culture. If the culture's weak, the culture becomes the new people.
It's why I was kept at the age of 33 to 36 in the dressing room.
Because you were a disciple of the culture.
Because Rafael da Silva from Brazil comes in. I'm the right back that's the senior right back. And who does he look to? He looks to me. He looks to Paul Scholes. He looks to Rio Ferdinand. And he sees people that are at the very top of the game, that are experienced, that are end of the careers. That's why I looked at Steve Bruce and Brian Robson, Eric Cantona. I had nowhere to go as a young player. I knew I had to do what they had to do, or else, because they were all doing it every single day, and they've been doing it for 15 years. It's not arrogance, this, and it's not because I'm biased, and it's not because I've gone to watch the club since the age of 5. I've travelled around the world with the club for the last 30, 40 years. I've seen the extent of the fan base, the emotion that exists within the fan base, the scale of the club, and the foundations are too deep.
But those foundations were created because of like generational success.
Yeah, but we had obviously we had the Busby Babes period with Sir Matt Busby. Then we had 30 years, 25 years before Sir Alex brought home a league title. So we've had 25 years before that we've gone through without success. Manchester United is not going away. It's not going. It's too big. It's too big. It's too magical. It's too good. That is not emotion. That is just. I feel very, very strongly about that. There is an element of cycle here, that we get in sort of our down period, but we shouldn't accept that, because I'm happy to lose football matches. I'm happy to be 4th in the league, 3rd in the league, 6th in the league, if we're doing the right things. So, have we got Manchester United should always have a world-class stadium. It hasn't. It should always have best-in-class training facility. It should always have best-in-class fan experience. It should always be in for the best players in the Premier League. It should always have young talent coming through, and it should always buy young emerging talent from overseas. It's veered away from all 5 or 6 of its key principles and objectives that it's always ever had. Any business does that, then it's in trouble. You've got owners that, to be fair, are now taking dividends out of the club. They're taking big, large payments in debt out of the club, or interest payments on the debt out of the club. All the money that the club generates, to be fair, is not going back into the club. And it's now come home to roost. They only own 69, 70% of the club, and they need £1 billion to be able to fulfil those infrastructure projects that are needed. Their walls are closing in on them. And they do need to do something big through partnership or through an investor or through a sale in the next, I think, 6 to 12 months. This cannot go on. That was a watershed moment at Brentford on Saturday. What we were all experiencing in that stadium, and I didn't obviously know you were in the stadium at that time, but now I know you were, and you said you were just compelled to stay because you couldn't leave. Everybody that I've spoken to was like, I've not seen too many things like that in 30 years of Premier League football. History. And actually, I never want Manchester United to lose.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favour. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.